To begin, a few words regarding the European program called Geronimo. The point is to provide breeders with new knowledge and new tools to promote innovative selection methods. In this program, there is a work package dedicated to the management of biodiversity, including 2 twin investigations conducted with the stakeholders involved in local breeds for poultry and for pig. Now, the idea was to involve the local breed stakeholders, get them to describe their farms, their selection program, to identify levers to improve the programs, to assess the possibilities for selection, and identify their concerns regarding the future of the breeds. The investigation took place online thanks to a software called Lime Survey, and there were a few face-to-face interviews. It was then subsequently translated in 7 languages, and the replies were collected over 2 months between 4th of October 2021 and 4th of January 2022. The investigation covered several subjects. There were more than 300 questions per species. Most of the questions were optional. There was no obligation to respond. They would then appear on the screen based on the answer provided to the previous question, and the number of answers could change from one question to another, and you will see this on the illustration on the slides of this presentation. Now, today I'm only going to have a chance to share with you a small part of the results of the investigation regarding pigs. After cleaning the data, we ended up with 339 questionnaires for the sake of the analysis. On this pie chart, you see that in blue we have a very unbalanced coverage according to the countries. Portugal and France, as you can tell from the pie chart, represent more than a third or close to a third of the answers that replies that we collected. Mainly breeders. Among the people we investigated and interviewed, 85% were breeders, 27 were managers, people in charge of managing farms, either providing consultancy on preservation programs, on how to hold genealogical records, or they were members of boards. There were 22 representing the processing profession, 54% of which from France, and about 1/3 of the stakeholders we interviewed had played multiple roles. The results of the investigation were presented in the form of percentages or standardized scores, ranging from 0 to 100. The calculation method is detailed in the paper if you're interested, but in summary, this allows us to have a better weighting of the scores and the ranking. Rank 1 for weak scores and 3 for high scores. Genetic conservation was the main motivation for the participants. Then we had the economic business with a slightly lower score. Then next, the wish to differentiate their breeds from the other breeds. Personal consumption and leisure were the last 2 motivations. Regarding economic activity, in average, the participants derived 42% of their income from activity with local breeds. And this percentage varied enormously from one country to another, as you can surmise from the chart on the bottom. It's lowest in Croatia and Slovenia, and highest in France with 57% of the income. The investigation covered 32 local pig breeds, and the number of questionnaires varied a lot from one breed to another. As you can see in the chart, local French breeds are red in this particular graph. So, local French breeds are well represented. In summary, the main management mode shows us that mostly the breeds are organized in pure breeds, and it's natural mating for 87%. 2/3 of the breeders renew a part of their boars and dams, 68%. The mating plan is based on the inbreeding coefficient between the boars and the sows, and they base the choice of the boars and dams on the standard of the breed, the general aspect, And there are elimination criteria such as teats, the number and quality of the teats, the general health condition, and possibly also the cull animals which have a genetic problem. And there is no genetic evaluation being carried out. 80% of the participants are favorable to selection. Mostly they look at the reproduction traits. So we have to be careful and take this result with a pinch of salt, because we're not absolutely certain that everybody understood the word selection exactly the same way. The remaining 20% do not express any opinion on this particular topic, and only 5% say they are not in favor of selection. And for the 20%, it's mostly the lack of human resources that is the #1 cause for not using selection. The investigation also confirmed that there are obstacles that prevent them from implementing a selection program. The small size of the farms, the average size of the breeding unit was 9 sows. The fact that they are not connected with each other because there is no artificial insemination, and most of the time the breeding farm will renew their own reproducing animals, and also the fact that the breeding methods are very different from one another. Finishing is conducted outdoors, so 23%, in total 51%, and 85% of the farms try to make use of natural resources. And for local breed, in some of the farms, the data regarding selection programs are collected in a very incomplete and patchy way. 65% of the participants declare themselves worried about the future of their breeds in the medium term and long term. And the first class of risks, the highest score for risks, are the economic risks. Next, we have anything relating to rules and regulations, especially the rules for standard implementation, crops, etc. Then we have the sanitary risks, and especially African swine fever, and also the risks connected with the contacts that the animals may have with the wild fauna. And then we also have inbreeding, obviously, and low performances, which may be sometimes an obstacle for some local breeds. Now, if we detail the economic risks, we find that the first criterion, the one that got the highest score, is the abusive use of the name of the local breed, because actually some breeders use a local name except they don't comply with the specifications associated with breeding pure local breeds. There's also the profitability of the farm, and then the fact that this type of breeding farm is relatively fragile. Most of the participants expect more support from the administration, and mostly they expect support to help them face some specific risks. For instance, they expect support that would encourage them to reach higher productivity, and also they expect support in order to fight against the abuse made by some breeders in the use of the local breed's name. I don't have time to go into more details. If you're interested, you can read the report, because the report is available for both investigations on poultry and on pigs. I mean, it will be available very soon on the Geronimo website. In conclusion, this investigation allowed us to draw a non-exhaustive picture of the local pig breeds in Europe. There is an unequal representation, but it's quite satisfactory actually for French local breeds. Some overall results should not be generalized to all the local breeds, because the situation varies a lot from one country or one region to another. Interestingly, however, there are concerns which are shared by several local breeders and several countries. In the future, we believe that the contacts we established during the investigation will make it easier to transfer the project's result to a wider number of stakeholders. Most of the people we talked to say that they were interested and wanted to follow the project. I would like to underline the fact that this work was only made possible with the help of many people within the partner structures. Nothing of this could have been done without them. I can't mention them all, but they are co-authors of this presentation. I would like to thank and acknowledge the European Union for the funding and the various participants in the investigation and the breeders' associations and all those who contributed to the success of this investigation. Thank you very much for your attention.